If you're in the market for any HCM or HRIS suite, there are going to be many options in the market, but which are the leading options? That's what we are going to discuss in this video. So let's dive in. Hello everyone, my name is Sam Gupta. I am principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent digital transformation advisory and analyst firm. We help our clients with the enterprise transformation strategy, enterprise technology, selection, and change management. On that note, let's go back to today's topic, which is going to be top 10 HCM software in 2025. Overall, before we look at the list, let's touch on some of the layers that we consider in compiling this list. Number one, this is the list for the HCM systems, only the best of breed HCM suite. If this is going to be some module of an ERP system, those systems are not accounted in this list. It has to be best of breed. From the data model perspective, it has to be a completely separate data model and an individual product, as opposed to the integrated module, embedded module as part of an ERP offering. Generally, these suites have very different processes. They capture a lot more operational processes from the recruiting perspective, the responsibilities that HR organizations are going to have. That could include any sort of document exchange that they are going to do either with their employees, external agencies, reporting compliance, etc. Not just the financial aspect of it, but also the operational aspect of it. Those processes are generally captured as part of the HCM suite. This is also going to include any sort of learning management systems or the benefits management systems. Sometimes there are going to be many different integrations that are captured as part of the HCM suite. And sometimes HCM suite could be as big as any of the ERP or CRM suites. The other layers that we have that are going to be relevant from the HCM system perspective is that the smaller systems in general are going to have very limited number of layers that are going to be relevant only for these smaller organizations. Sometimes they could be very easy to implement, easy to use, but then you are going to outgrow them when you are looking for slightly more scalable layers that you are going to need from the enterprise perspective. In general, in comparing with the mid-market versus the small systems, the mid-market systems are going to include the managed services offering as part of their offering, as opposed to going through the partner channels. So some of the enterprise systems that we are going to have on the list are going to work with the partner channels. Sometimes they include any of the PEO, which is going to be professional employment organizations, and these are third-party agencies, HR consultancies. Sometimes they run the payroll, but they are also going to capture any sort of third-party HR compliance processes that they might be doing for these companies. But with the mid-market organizations, sometimes the management many services are going to be part of the offerings as well. So that's going to be the differentiator. In general, the way the HCM suites are structured in the market, they are going to be anywhere from 1 to 50 employees, and then 50 to 1,000, and then 1,000 and up. So these are different categories. Every company is going to have their own segmentation in terms of the way they are going to structure these suites. But for the most part, this is the major segmentation. The products that are going to be designed for that 50 employees and below are going to be very easy to use, implement. You don't probably require any sort of consulting help. The reporting is going to be limited just because the data layers are going to be limited as well. With the mid-market product, the processes that are going to be there are going to be different. But for the enterprise products, you are looking at far more global compliance, scalable layers that are going to be relevant for the enterprises. The approval flows are going to be very different as well. So the capabilities that you are going to have with the the enterprise products are going to be slightly different than the mid-market products. The criteria that we use to compile these lists, and specifically this list, is number one, product share acquisition strategy focused on the HCM suite, the product roadmap, community, ecosystem, win rate, technology strategy, as well as the investors. So these are some of the variables we have used for this list. So now let's look at the list. Number 10 on our list is UKG Ready. And UKG Ready is the smaller version of UKG Pro. This is targeted for the mid-market segment, the SMB product. And if you're looking for easy to use product, not very heavy on a scalability, if you have very limited implementation budget, then this product could be a great fit. It does have localization supported for many different countries. So if you are going to be, but obviously it's not going to be as broad as your UKG Pro product, but it does have several countries supported as part of the product. Some of these trends that you're looking at from the UKG Ready perspective is, again, it's going to be very easy to implement, easier to use. You have many services as part of UKG, and that's why generally customers like UKG a lot more than some of the other vendors on the list, because the kind of support and the managed services that they are going to get from the vendor's perspective are going to be much better. But this strategy might change at any point of time of any vendor. For example, let's say if you look at a very smaller product, for example, Gusto was one of the best, from the payroll perspective. They had one of the best support provided by the OEM, but that changed overnight as soon as either they go public or there are management changes or they get acquired by private equity. They are going to have very different strategy. So you just don't have the same support that used to be there with the product. But UKG, the support is still there with UKG. You are not going to have as many challenges as you are going to find with the other products, where either the support team is not as good and they are not bundling the managed services as part of their offering. Generally, they are going to recommend the partner channel, the PEO organization. So you are going to get much superior support from UKG perspective. The other strengths that we have from the UKG perspective is it is going to be pre-integrated with some of the compliance flows. So that's the major strength that we have from the UKG perspective. The limitations that you are looking at, the enterprise capabilities, for example, let's say if you look at capabilities such as succession planning or similar capabilities that are going to be relevant for slightly more enterprise organizations, they are not as relevant in the SMB space, the mid-market space. That's why these products don't have those capabilities, because number one, they are going to be over bloated. Number two, you are going to pay a lot more for the capabilities that you are never going to utilize. And that's why these products don't necessarily have those capabilities. Then the other limitations that you have from the UKG Ready perspective is it's a very small product, not necessarily designed for the enterprises. So those are some things you need to keep in mind, and that's number 10. Now, number 9 on our list is Zoho HCM. And Zoho HCM is part of the whole Zoho suite. Zoho has many different offerings, including your CRM. They have accounting, bookkeeping, project management. All of these capabilities are part of the suite. But as a part of the HCM suite, they have many different offerings, such as the recruiting, the benefits management. They have the core HR. They also have the self-service portal from the HR perspective. The case management capabilities could be utilized towards HR as well. And then they are going to have applicant tracking system as well. So they have complete suite. From the pricing perspective, they are far friendlier as well. Their licensing is not as expensive as some of the other products that we have on this list. So some of these trends that you're looking at from the Zoho HCM perspective, and Zoho HCM has been proven with slightly larger organizations, just because the kind of capabilities you have as part of Zoho HCM, they're fairly detailed. They can allow very customized processes. The number of layers that you have, whether you talk about simple capabilities such as the way you are going to plan your vacations or the way you are going to schedule your resources, all of those capabilities are going to be there as part of Zoho HCM, and that's why it does really well in the mid-market organizations. Now, the challenge that you are going to run into with Zoho HCM is that the support is not going to be as good. You don't necessarily have the core HR managed services centric offering that you are going to find with UKG. So that could be a challenge if you have your own internal capabilities, internal maturity from the HR processes. But these processes are changing on a daily basis as well. So sometimes it's good to have that managed services offering. And in general, Zoho support is not great. It has been going down in the last few years. At least that's what users report on many different public forums. So check that out. Also, their support is provided by from their support team in India. So they are not going to have as much know-how from the compliance perspective. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind if you're looking for Zoho HCM. Now, some of the other strengths that you need to keep in mind is it's going to be one system that can support very mature capabilities from the HCM HR perspective that might be limited in, let's say, if you look at systems such as your BambooHR, they might do certain things, but they are not going to have comprehensive package for the SMBs. And then it can also communicate with the other applications that Zoho has in its portfolio. So that does help in creating the overarching architecture, especially if your apps are going to be slightly more disconnected and you're simply looking to move some of the data from these apps to apps. In those cases, it might make sense. For example, let's say if you are going to be in the professional services, consulting, marketing agencies, for these companies, they don't necessarily require the embedded processes, especially for the smaller organizations. And for that, this may be a great fit. Some other strength that we have is if you are going to have any sort of custom apps, and in the HCM space, just the data collection from the employee perspective, or if you are collaborating with any other third-party agencies, if you have a lot of contractors, then you need to do a lot of surveys. You need to collect data, and if you are going to do all of that, sometimes you do require these custom apps as part of your HR organizations, and for that, Zoho HCM is going to have much more detailed capabilities. But keep in mind that all of these capabilities need to be developed. So you would be spending a lot more in consulting, in maintenance over the period of time. But at least from the platform perspective, you have those capabilities. Now, the limitations that you need to keep in mind is that managed services from the Zoho perspective, and I think I already touched on this point, so they are only going to be available through partners, and then compliance integration would be custom. So you are going to be investing a lot more in those processes, in those integrations, and the communication among data centers. So each of the data centers that they have, US, Canada, India, Philippines, all of these data centers are completely separate. They cannot allow the communication among them. So let's say if you are consolidating all of these processes as part of one data center, then you might be okay. But sometimes you are going to have different legal entities. Then you might run into challenges for HR processes. Let's say, even if you have multiple legal entities and those legal entities are deployed in different accounting software, but you have the consolidated state of your HR HCM processes in one country, that architecture may be okay with Zoho. But let's say if your HR processes as well as accounting processes, all of those need to be part of one system globally, then you might run into challenges. So those are going to be some of the limitations, and that's number 9. Number 8 on our list is Info WFM. And Info WFM does really well in the manufacturing centric spaces, healthcare spaces, public sector organizations. If you look at the core process model, the data model, it has some of the data models and the process model supported for these healthcare organizations that you are not going to find in any of the other products. And sometimes those capabilities could be substantially intertwined. So if the vendors are claiming that they are going to have the custom fields, custom objects, and you should be able to enable those capabilities, sometimes they could be harder because for these organizations, even their operational scheduling that is going to be there, that is going to reside inside their WFM product, and that scheduling requires several different dependencies as well as data element that needs to be captured for the scheduling to work. And that's why these processes could be tricky to accommodate in other systems, and that's where Info WFM really shines. So some of the other strengths that you need to keep in mind from the Info WFM perspective is that you have this whole healthcare specific scheduling, but that is also relevant for the manufacturing centric spaces, sometimes retail centric spaces where the scheduling needs to reside inside your HCM component, WFM component. They don't necessarily have the ERP where they are going to use that for the scheduling, especially the physical retail companies. Their workforce is going to be scheduled as part of that WFM component, HCM component. For that, Info WFM could be a great fit. And there are only few solutions in the market that allow the WFM scheduling that is going to be very operational scheduling at the branch level, at the plant level, that only solutions such as your Info WFM can accommodate. Then you have some of the other processes in these industries that are going to be, for example, let's say workflow for in-use inventory as well as planning. That is a very unique process. Not many products can support that. So for these industries, Info WFM is a great fit. Also, if you differentiate between your blue collar industries versus white collar industries, generally when you are going to have very highly compensated workers versus low compensated workers, such as your blue collar workers, the processes, the scheduling that you are going to have for highly compensated workers, number one, you are not going to have as many of them. So you cannot really plan at the category level. For blue collar workers, you are probably planning at the category level. You can substitute them with the similar resources. That is not possible with your white collar workers. In those industries, the processes are going to be very different. Info WFM is going to be stronger for the blue collar industry than some of the HCM solutions. For example, let's say if you compare this with Dayforce did really well in those blue collar industries as well. Workday, Oracle, all of these solutions are probably going to be slightly better fit for white collar industries. So that's going to be another layer that you need to be thinking about when you look at these solutions. The limitations from the Info WFM perspective, it's not as mature from the overarching ACM capabilities. Even though Info has many different products, sometimes they are going to claim that the overarching corporate capabilities are going to be part of their Info Lawson product or Info S3 product. So they have some of those capabilities, but that's more of the ERP solution. That's not necessarily the HCM solution. So you need to pay attention to where these capabilities are going to reside and whether the HCM is going to be best of breed without those financial layers. Once you include those financial layers, it's going to be a very different architecture. It's going to be slower. It's going to have the financial perspective to it, but that does not work for every single industry depending upon the architecture that you want to build. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, the other limitation that we have from the Info WFM perspective is the managed services offerings are not going to be available from Infor. They are going to be supported through partners. And in general, you don't have as many partners in the Infor ecosystem, even though they have some partners, but it's just not as many as some of the other solutions that are going to specialize in those HCM, HR-centric workflows. They are going to have the HR consulting firms. They specialize in those compliance offerings. So that might be a little challenge for Info WFM solution. And the tools as well as integrations that you're looking at from the ACM perspective, they might not be as many as prevalent in the Info ecosystem as well. So that's going to be another limitation to keep in mind, and that's number 8. Now, number 7 on our list is BambooHR. And BambooHR is a very small solution designed for the smaller organizations. In general, BambooHR is going to be good for any of the capabilities that is going to be slightly more collaboration centric. And when I say collaboration, what I mean is, let's say if you are doing any sort of recruiting processes, and these recruiting processes need to be integrated using the external form with the external recruiting agencies. Sometimes these capabilities are easier to implement just because they don't need to comply with the data model. The data model is going to be slightly flatter, and that's why the transactional capabilities are going to be far more limited. In general, the collaboration capabilities are going to be far richer with some of the newer technologies, newer products, the smaller products. So with BambooHR, one of the things that you are going to notice is it's probably going to be easier to use. It's going to be cheaper implementation. Bamboo can provide the implementation service for as low as $5,000, $10,000. It's going to be that cheap just because the product is smaller. That's why it is able to accommodate implementation at such low budget. The adoption risk is probably not going to be a challenge in this particular case, just because the product is going to be easier. But depending upon the skill set of the company, if your company has never used a product, then obviously this is probably going to be the best fit. But for some organizations, even this product might be a very heavy lift. But overall, if you compare this with among other products, this is probably going to be one of the easiest solution that you're going to find in the HCM market. Now, the limitations that you're looking at is, number one, the reporting is substantially limited. It's not built natively, so you would be spending a lot more if you are able to get the data out. For the most part, those capabilities are not necessarily natively supported, natively built. So that's going to be a limitation you are going to run into with BambooHR. Now, the enterprise capabilities are going to be substantially limited. Again, this is designed for startups, smaller segments, depending upon how thick your HR processes are, what all you are trying to do from the approval perspective, from the HR perspective, but it could be great for the smaller organizations. Now, the suite capabilities that you're going to find with the other mid-market products, they are going to be substantially limited, even though BambooHR does have the ecosystem where you can find many different apps, but they are not going to be as many as what you are going to find with the other products. So that's number 7. Number 6 on our list is ADP Vintage HCM. And ADP Vintage HCM is designed for the upper mid market, and that is going to be the segment with 1,000+ employees, and they are going to have very complex payroll needs. For the most part, ADP is far stronger in general from the payroll capabilities, the financial capabilities, the benefits administration. That was their secret sauce. Now, they have developed some other HCM capabilities as well. So any of the financial operations capabilities from the HR perspective are going to be much thicker. Overall, when you look at the capabilities of the global payroll, especially when you are going to look at these payroll capabilities at the county level, with most products, you are probably going to utilize some sort of international, some sort of add-on that is going to be provided by a third-party vendor. But the larger products are going to support a lot more countries natively, but then they are only going to require fewer countries where you would be adding add-ons. So it's really the number of add-ons that you are going to require with any of these products. ADP has an international product, but then they also have the North American product. North American product is probably going to be slightly richer. The international product is not going to support as much payroll as you would want. So that's going to be a challenge with ADP. Some of the strengths to keep in mind from the ADP Vintage HCM product is strength is going to be with the benefits, the payroll management. Managed services through ADP is one of the strongest. It's probably going to be similar to ADP. Especially from the benefits administration perspective or from the payroll perspective. That's where they are really strong. And the advanced capabilities such as your segregation of duties, they are probably going to be available through ADP as well. Now, the limitations that you're looking at from the ADP perspective is, since these are acquired products, so you might run into some of the communication issues among different modules, apps that they have acquired. That is something that we hear all the time from the customers, from the users for ADP. Now, the other limitations that you might want to keep in mind with ADP Vintage is it is probably not as complete as some of the other suites that we have on this list. So that's number 6. Now, number 5 on our list is Dayforce HCM. And Dayforce HCM was a very mid-market solution, but now they have a lot of enterprise logos as well. So it is probably very similar to any other enterprise products. For example, let's say Workday or your SuccessFactors or Oracle HCM. These solutions are going to have much deeper capabilities from the suite perspective. For example, Workday has a lot more capabilities from the finance perspective. They also have the FP&A. So they have a lot more capabilities from the enterprise perspective. But Dayforce has been proven in a lot of these segments as well. Sometimes Dayforce could be an easier product for companies to be able to deploy than working with some of these legacy technologies. For example, SuccessFactors was a great product, but the technology is slightly legacy, and that's why companies struggle a little bit with that. Some of the strengths to keep in mind with Dayforce is it's very user friendly as well as the comprehensive suite with WFM capabilities as well. So if you are going to be in industries where WFM capability is going to be critical, then this is probably going to be a great product. The limitations to keep in mind is probably overwhelming for very small organizations. So if you are going to be under 50 employees, this is probably not the right product for you. Even though Dayforce might claim that they can work with any organizations, but again, the product is designed for slightly bigger organizations. Now it has far more layers. For a smaller organizations, this could be slightly overwhelming. The managed services model that Dayforce has, that is through partners. So that is something to keep in mind as well. If you care for managed services, then UKG may be a better fit. And then the enterprise grade capabilities. And once you get deeper into these capabilities, depending upon what you are trying to do, depending upon how your approval processes are, depending upon how many different layers you have with respect to your entities, that is what you might struggle a little bit with Dayforce. But in general, it has been deployed by very large organizations in general. And that's number 5. Number 4 on our list is UKG Pro. UKG Pro is slightly smaller product than your Dayforce. It is proven in that mid-market segment, lower mid-market, upper mid-market. And the reason why companies love UKG Pro is because of their managed services and the way the product is designed. In general, it's much easier implementation for companies. It's not going to be as overwhelming as some of the other bigger products, for example, Oracle, Cloud HCM, SuccessFactors, etc. But then the number of layers that you're going to have supported as part of the product are not going to be as scalable to be able to support many different business models, industries, etc. That's where you are going to run into issues depending upon the maturity of your users, depending upon maturity of your organization. If they have done a lot of different implementations, if they have outgrown UKG Pro, then you can go to slightly more advanced product. But for the most part, if let's say you are outgrowing BambooHR or Zoho HCM and you are looking for mid-market product, then UKG Pro could be a great product for that. Some of the strengths to keep in mind is going to be managed services. They are available through UKG. And again, that is one of the factors why most users and customers, they love UKG for that factor. Implementation is probably going to be easier than other generalized platforms. And then you have localization supported in roughly 100 countries, which is a lot. But even with this, with UKG Pro as well, you are probably going to require some of the add-ons, but depending upon the number of countries supported. So do a careful review of each of the products that you are reviewing, how many different countries are supported, how many countries you are going to need. Do this analysis at the county level in terms of what support you are going to be needing and what level of support is available in that, and if these solutions are going to utilize any sort of third-party add-ons, white-labeled products as part of their suite. So that is something you might want to review. Other limitations that we have from the UKG perspective is the partner ecosystem is very limited. So you are sort of reliant on UKG's professional services. For whatever reason, if you don't like that, then you don't really have much of the options to sort of go out and shop around among partners. So that is going to be one of the risks that you are going to run into. And then the strategy of any company might change at any minute. So sometimes that could be a difficult decision as well, that today the support might be good, but tomorrow, let's say if they get acquired by another private equity or they make any sort of management changes, sometimes the support model changes as well. So that is another factor that you need to keep in mind. The enterprise capabilities are going to be limited. The number of layers are not going to be as robust, as detailed in supporting many different HR processes, different business models, the business models of different industries. All of that might be slightly limited in UKG Pro, especially if you have very complex organization or you are going to be very active in M&A. Sometimes that could be a challenge with this product. Then it's probably going to be overwhelming for SMBs, because again, that's a mid-market product, not necessarily designed for very small organizations. So that is another factor that you need to keep in mind, and that's number 4. Number 3 on our list is Oracle Cloud HCM. Oracle Cloud HCM is a very enterprise-grade product. It's proven in those Fortune 100, Fortune 500 workloads, especially the organizations that are going to be on Oracle Cloud ERP. In some industries, the HCM processes need to be intertwined with your ERP processes. So one of the factors that you should be looking at is 90% of the HCM systems that we have, they are going to hang out in very specific ecosystems. So for example, let's say if you look at Oracle Cloud HCM, Oracle Cloud HCM is going to be much tightly integrated with the Oracle products. If you look at SuccessFactors, SuccessFactors is probably going to be integrated with the SAP products. Now, when you look at slightly more agnostic vendors, they might be integrated with many different ERP systems, many different CRM systems, recruiting systems, etc. But they are also going to have their own sort of alliances where they are going to be tightly integrated. So one of the factors that you should be reviewing is what other tools are there that you have in your architecture, and whether the product that you are acquiring is that going to be as well accepted in those ecosystems or not. And this is all because of the vendor alignment, the political strategy that each of the vendors are going to have, depending upon whether they are going together, or they have any competing offerings where they might not allow other vendors in their ecosystem. So that is going to be one of the factors that you need to look at. But when you look at Oracle Cloud HCM, it's going to be much better. Let's say if you have Oracle Cloud ERP, then you are just going to get better alignment from the installation perspective. But let's say in your team, if you have a conflict, your finance team is saying that they want to go for Oracle Cloud ERP, but your HR team, let's say, wants to go for Workday, and that is very common combination. That's a possibility. Workday is probably going to be slightly more agnostic overall from their footprint. So this is not necessarily a bad combination. But in some cases, let's say if you have Oracle Cloud HCM and then you are going with SuccessFactors, that might not be the best combination because Oracle and SAP, they are probably going to be rivals. So these are some of the factors that you need to keep in mind when deciding on these systems. Now, some of these trends to keep in mind from the Oracle Cloud HCM perspective is that it is going to have one of the most robust enterprise-grade workflows, but that is also going to increase the complexity of the product, which means higher implementation budget, much more implementation complexity, adoption risks. So all of those are going to be bundled towards that. So now the other strength that you need to keep in mind is it is integrated and embedded with Oracle Cloud ERP, and it's probably going to be similar look and feel with the other Oracle products. So the transition is not going to be as much. That does add some value for some organizations if they are looking to create very similar experience across teams, so that they are not going to experience as much transition when they are moving from product to product. Sometimes they are not even going to feel the difference because the UI that they are going to utilize is probably going to be very similar. It's just going to be switching different apps from their dashboard. So that's a huge plus for Oracle Cloud ERP users. Now, the limitations that you are going to run into with Oracle Cloud HCM is that if you're looking for managed services, then you are looking at the partner ecosystem. They are not going to have the managed services. The large majority of enterprise products, they just don't have managed services. So sometimes you might feel that you are not getting enough support from these enterprise vendors. But again, if you cannot hire a consulting firm for these implementation for support, then the enterprise products may not be the best choice for you. You might want to go for slightly more mid-market solutions such as your UKG Pro or maybe Dayforce. And then you have the implementation is probably going to be very expensive as well, because of the number of layers that the product is going to have from the data perspective, from the process perspective, also requires much higher maturity from the IT perspective. So that's number 3. Now, number 2 on our list is SuccessFactors, which is a very similar product as your Oracle Cloud HCM. The only difference is SuccessFactors is going to be available through SAP. It is going to be part of that SAP S/4HANA suite. So it's going to have much better alignment with the SAP products. Their pricing, licensing is going to be designed to incentivize companies to use SuccessFactors. So you are going to get some financial synergies there if you are going to use everything from SAP, but sometimes you might run into adoption risks because the users, they might not appreciate the experience that SuccessFactors is providing. Or let's say if they are coming from Workday and they don't like SuccessFactors look and feel, you might not get the adoption. Because of that, you might not get the data, and obviously you are not going to get the business insights either. So that is a factor that you need to keep in mind. Now, the strengths are going to be very similar from the success factors perspective, that you are going to have very enterprise grade workflows, very similar to your Oracle Cloud HCM. The integration and embeddedness with the whole SAP S/4HANA suite is going to be there. And then the look and feel is going to be very similar to SAP products. So that does help with the training transition, etc. So that's going to be another strength. Limitations, the managed services, again, in this case as well, it's probably going to be available through partners. The implementation is going to be expensive, just like your Oracle Cloud HCM, and you are probably going to require much higher maturity from the IT perspective. So that's going to be another limitation that you need to keep in mind, and that's number 2. Number 1 on our list is Workday. And Workday is primarily successful with very large organizations. If you are going to have very enterprise grade processes, you have outgrown, let's say, UKG, Dayforce, then you should be looking at Workday. If you are outgrowing, for example, Zoho HCM or UKG Ready or Info-WFM or maybe ADP, then Workday may not be the best choice. In general, the way these products are structured, they go in terms of tiers. And in terms of the adoption risks, your best bet is going to be that when you are on a very small product, you probably go for slightly more mid-market product. When you have outgrown, when you know that mid-market products are probably not going to serve your needs, then you go to your enterprise products. In general, sometimes these issues could be because of the implementation as well. So make sure you are sort of differentiating between the implementation issues and the product issues. But Workday, again, if you have outgrown those mid-market products, then Workday may be a better product. In general, that is far more successful with the larger organizations when they are going to have very complex HR processes, very, very complex business models, and sometimes the business model might not be known at this point of time in how that is going to change, how the compensation structure is going to change. If you are going to be very active from the M&A perspective, sometimes you just don't know how these things are going to change. So if you are looking for slightly more unlimited scalability, but that unlimited scalability is going to have a cost from the implementation training perspective, so you need to keep that in mind. So again, Workday, if you're looking for that kind of scalability, then Workday is probably going to be a better solution. The strengths that you need to keep in mind from Workday perspective is the workflows are going to be enterprise grade. The integration with the suite products, for example, let's say EPM as well as the financials that they have, that is going to be a huge plus because it's going to have tighter integration. In general, Workday is slightly better with service-centric industries. It might be okay option for retail construction as well. In those industries, you should definitely be including. But let's say if you go for manufacturing, then probably Workday is not the best fit just because they are not going to have as many logos. They are not going to have as much presence unless you are using Workday only for the HCM processes, even though it's probably going to be a harder lift. So now some of the other strengths, the partner ecosystem is also very strong from the Workday perspective, and but then you are not going to have the managed services the way you are going to find with UKG. Limitations to keep in mind is that the managed services are only going to be available through partners. Workday does not have that. They are providing slightly more technical platform. So again, you are looking at slightly more expensive implementation. And if you cannot afford the consulting help, then this might not be the best product for you, and does require very mature internal IT org, just similar to any other enterprise grade products. So that's going to be a limitation with Workday. So that's it for this list. If you enjoyed this video, we are going to include a detailed article that is going to have much deeper insight. So you might want to check that. This podcast is also available in the audio form on Apple, Spotify, or any other favorite platforms that you have. So you might want to check there, subscribe if you like. Also, we publish these videos on a weekly basis. So if you don't want to miss these videos, you might want to hit the subscribe button as well as hit the bell notification on YouTube channel. Finally, if you have not checked our digital transformation report for 2025, we include all of these lists along with several different metrics for you to be successful with your digital transformation journey. So we are going to include the link of that as well. You are going to see QR code displayed through this video. So you might want to download that as well. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.